The silence of deep space was broken by the rumble of the starship Resolute as it cruised through the black void. Inside, Commander Ellen Carter sat in the war room, her eyes fixed on the holographic map before her. Red dots littered the projection enemy vessels and armada of the most feared species in the galaxy, the Abominations. These creatures, once humanoid, had twisted and evolved into something grotesque and monstrous. They spread across the stars, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Their advance was swift, merciless, and terrifying, decimating entire planets. They consumed entire civilizations for sport, leaving only the hollowed-out remains of worlds in their path. But now, they were heading for Earth. Humanity was known across the galaxy for one thing: resilience. While other species had crumbled beneath the Abominations' onslaught, humanity stood tall. The Alliance had called for peace, urging the humans to surrender. But Carter knew better. Humans didn't surrender, they didn't quit, and they sure as hell didn't bow down to monsters. "Commander, we're approaching the enemy fleet," said Lieutenant Griggs, his voice tense. He was young, eager, and a little scared just like everyone else on board. Carter nodded, her mind focused and sharp. Good, prepare for battle. The plan was simple: strike the heart of the Abomination fleet, take out their command ship, and throw them into chaos. But nothing was ever that simple when facing an enemy as fierce as this. Carter had read the reports how their ships moved like predators through the dark, how their weapons tore through shields like paper. She had seen the images of entire colonies, ravaged by the Abominations' claws and teeth. But humans were different. They had something no one else did, able to survive, that bordered on the insane. The Resolute burst through the darkness, leading the charge of the Earth Defense Fleet. Hundreds of human ships followed, brimming with soldiers who had nothing left to lose. The space between the fleets lit up in an instant as weapons fired, beams of light and bolts of plasma crisscrossing the vast distance. As the battle raged, the Resolute plunged into the heart of the enemy formation, dodging fire with impossible precision. The Abominations were relentless, their ships attacking from all directions, but Carter and her crew were relentless too. Human fighters swarmed the larger ships like angry hornets, outmaneuvering their enemies at every turn. On board the command ship of the Abomination fleet, a grotesque creature snarled at the sight of the human assault. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The Abominations had expected fear, panic, but instead, they faced fury. They faced humanity's most dangerous trait, defiance. "Push forward," Carter barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We take them out here, or we don't go home at all." Her crew knew what was at stake. Earth was behind them, millions of innocent lives depending on their success. And if humanity was good at one thing, it was making a stand when all the odds were stacked against them. The Resolute plunged deeper into the enemy ranks, heading straight for the command ship. Explosions rocked the vessel, and alarms blared, but Carter remained calm. They were close enough to deal a death blow to the Abomination's leadership. "Ready the main cannon," she ordered, eyes fixed on the looming command ship ahead. "Cannon ready," came the reply. "Fire!" A blinding beam of energy erupted from the Resolute, tearing through the void and slamming into the command ship. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through space, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, the command ship exploded in a fiery blaze, taking with it the Abomination's hope of victory. The remaining enemy ships faltered, their coordination crumbling without central leadership. In moments, the tide of battle shifted completely. The human fleet surged forward, pressing the advantage and wiping out the disoriented Abomination vessels. As the last of the enemy fleet vanished into the void, a cheer erupted through the Resolute. They had done it, against impossible odds. They had won. Carter slumped into her seat, exhausted but triumphant. Earth was safe, for now. She looked out at the stars, where the wreckage of the battle floated aimlessly. Humanity had faced the Abominations and come out victorious. And if these monsters thought they could break the human spirit, they had learned it the hard way, that no force in the universe could defeat humanity's will to survive. In the quiet aftermath, as the crew celebrated, Carter allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy now knew what humans were capable of when pushed to the brink. They didn't fall, they fought back. And they won. The Abominations were no more than a dark memory, a warning to any species that dared to challenge humanity in the future. The glow of victory barely had time to settle before alarms blared once again throughout the Resolute. Commander Carter's eyes snapped to the control panel. Her brief moment of peace was shattered. "Commander, we're detecting a new wave of enemy ships coming out of warp," Lieutenant Griggs shouted from his station. His face drained of color as the scanner lit up with down scenes, then hundreds of incoming signals. Carter's heart sank, but her expression remained steady. She had known the fight was far from over, and now the real challenge was upon them. "How many?" she asked, her voice calm but stern. "Over 300 vessels, and something else," Griggs replied, his voice trembling. "There's a massive signal larger than anything we've seen before." Carter stood from her chair, walking over to the scanner. Her eyes widened as she saw the massive energy reading. "That's no ordinary ship." The crew around her murmured, but Carter's mind worked faster than her fear. She knew what this was. The Resolute had only taken down a fragment of the Abomination fleet. This new Signalik was their true flagship. The real nightmare had just arrived. "Raise shields. All stations on high alert. We're not done yet." The air in the control room tightened. The crew scrambled to their positions, but Carter remained still, focused. She had prepared her whole life for this moment. She knew humanity's only chance was to strike hard and fast, no matter the cost. The battle had been difficult before, but now they faced a force that made the first wave seem like a distraction. "Commander, incoming transmission from the flagship," Griggs called out. "Put it on," Carter said without hesitation. A distorted figure materialized on the holographic screen. It's from a hideous mixture of organic and mechanical components. Its voice was a sickening mix of growls and screeches, but the message was clear. "You pathetic creatures think this battle is over. You are but insects beneath our heel. We are the abominations. You will be consumed, and your world will burn." The transmission ended abruptly, and the cold silence that followed was almost unbearable. Carter clenched her fists. "Not today," she whispered under her breath. The battle outside intensified as the first wave of reinforcements clashed with the remaining human ships. Explosions lit up the black void, debris scattering in all directions as ships collided in violent exchanges of firepower. "Focus fire on the smaller ships," Carter commanded, her voice cutting through the rising tension. "We need to thin their ranks before we face the behemoth." The Resolute plunged forward, leading the charge once again. The human fleet responded with precision, hammering the enemy with everything they had, but the Abomination flagship loomed larger and larger in the distance, an ominous shadow moving through the chaos like a predator stalking its prey. "We're not going to survive a head-on assault with that thing," Griggs muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. Carter turned to him, her eyes hard. "We're not going to die running, either." As the Resolute tore through the enemy lines, Carter's mind raced. She knew conventional tactics wouldn't be enough. They needed a plan, a way to cripple the monstrous flagship before it annihilated everything in its path. But what could stand against something that massive? Then it hit her. It was a gamble, maybe even suicide, but it was the only option that had a chance of working. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice sharp with urgency, "what's the status of our quantum bomb?" Griggs blinked, stunned. "Commander, that device is still experimental. We've never tested it in actual combat. It could save Earth," Carter interrupted, her voice steel. "Prepare the device." Griggs hesitated for only a moment before nodding and relaying the command. The quantum bomb was humanity's last-ditch weapon, a device designed to tear through the very fabric of space and time. It wasn't supposed to be used unless there was no other choice. And this was their no other choice. As the Resolute maneuvered closer to the flagship, the Abomination fleet began to close in. They were relentless, like a tidal wave of destruction sweeping through the human ships. Carter's heart pounded as the enemy's fire lit up the space around her, the ship shaking under the strain. "Commander, we're in range," Griggs reported, his voice tight. "Good," Carter said. She stood tall, gazing out into the void, where the Abomination flagship loomed like a living nightmare. "Deploy the bomb." There was a moment of eerie calm as the Resolute released the quantum device. It drifted through space like a tiny speck compared to the behemoth they faced, but Carter knew the real power it held. As the Abominations continued their attack, the bomb silently moved closer to their flagship, unnoticed amidst the chaos. The seconds ticked by in agonizing slow motion. Then, a blinding flash. Space itself seemed to ripple and twist as the bomb detonated. The flagship was caught in the blast, its shields flaring to life in a desperate attempt to withstand the attack, but the quantum energy tore through it, ripping the massive vessel apart from the inside out. The explosion was like nothing Carter had ever seen. It wasn't just fire and debris, it was as if reality itself had shattered. The flagship crumbled, its twisted form collapsing into the void as the blast expanded outward. In an instant, the remaining abomination ships faltered. Without their leader, without the terrifying flagship that had been their anchor, they scattered in confusion. "Commander, the enemy fleet is retreating," Briggs shouted, disbelief in his voice. A murmur of relief swept through the crew, but Carter remained standing, watching the last remnants of the abomination forces vanish into the darkness. "We won," she said quietly, almost to herself, but she knew the truth. They had won this battle, yes, but the war wasn't over. As the Resolute floated in the wreckage of the battlefield, Commander Carter turned to her crew, her expression somber. "Prepare a report for Earth Command. The abominations will be back." Humanity had bought itself time, but Carter knew it wouldn't be long before the monsters returned, and when they did, she would be ready. The galaxy had underestimated humans once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The Resolute hung silently in space, surrounded by the wreckage of the abomination fleet. The quantum bomb had worked, but the victory felt fragile. Commander Carter knew this quiet was only temporary, a calm before the next storm. As the crew began repairs and recovery, a transmission came through from Earth Command. The face of General Hayes appeared on the screen, his grizzled features drawn tight with concern. "Commander Carter," he began, his voice heavy with urgency, "we've been monitoring your battle. Outstanding work, but we've intercepted some troubling intelligence." Carter leaned forward, her heart sinking. "What is it, sir?" "There's been a signal sent out just before the abomination flagship was destroyed. We believe it's a distress call. More of their kind could be on their way." A chill ran down Carter's spine. "How long do we have?" General Hayes hesitated, then replied, "Days, maybe hours." The realization hit hard. They had fought so long and hard just to survive this battle, but another wave stronger and more prepared was already coming, and this time, Earth itself was the target. "Understood, sir," Carter said, her voice steady, though inside, she felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. Hayes' voice softened, knowing the burden she carried. "You've done more than anyone could have asked, Ellen, but if they make it to Earth," his voice trailed off, the implication hanging in the air, there would be no Earth left if the abominations reached the homeworld. Carter took a breath, pushing away the fear. "We'll stop them, sir." The screen went dark, and the war room fell into silence. The crew looked to her for direction, waiting for the next move. They were exhausted, beaten down from the relentless fighting, but Carter knew what had to be done. "Listen up," she said, standing tall, her voice cutting through the room. "We don't have much time, but we're not going down without a fight. Earth is counting on us, and we're going to give those monsters everything we've got." The crew straightened, determination filling the air. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for humanity itself. Hours passed in a blur of activity as the Resolute prepared for the final battle. Reinforcements from Earth's defense fleet were on the way, but Carter knew they'd be facing overwhelming numbers. The abominations wouldn't just send another fleet, they'd send their full force, intent on wiping out humanity once and for all. In the quiet moments before the attack, Carter found herself in the observation deck, staring out into the vastness of space. She had fought many battles in her life, but nothing like this. This wasn't just a fight for victory, it was a fight for existence. The door slid open behind her, and Lieutenant Griggs stepped in, his expression somber. "Commander, the crew is ready. All systems are prepared." Carter nodded, but didn't turn around. "Thanks, Griggs." He paused for a moment, then stepped closer. "You think we can win this?" She didn't answer right away. She wasn't sure if victory was even possible, but humanity had defied the odds before, and they could do it again. Finally, she turned to him, a small smile on her lips. "We don't have a choice." Griggs nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Then we'll win." As he left, Carter felt a surge of determination rise within her. The abominations thought they could break humanity, but they didn't understand what made humans different. It wasn't just their technology, their tactics, or their numbers. It was their heart, their unyielding refusal to surrender, no matter how dark things got. Carter returned to the bridge as the warning alarms blared. The enemy fleet had arrived. The sky above Earth lit up as hundreds of abomination ships emerged from warp. They filled the space around the planet like a dark cloud, their twisted forms looming over humanity's homeworld. The Resolute and the Earth Defense Fleet surged forward to meet them, launching a barrage of missiles and energy blasts. The battle was fierce, each side exchanging deadly fire in a dance of destruction. But this time, the abominations had brought more than just ships. They had brought their war beasts. Monstrous creatures emerged from the enemy vessels, massive organic horrors that clung to human ships, tearing them apart with claws and fangs. The human fleet fought valiantly, but it was clear they were outmatched. On the bridge of the Resolute, Carter barked orders, her mind racing. The fleet was being overwhelmed. They needed a miracle. "Commander," Briggs shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, "we're detecting something, a new signal, coming from the far side of the enemy fleet." Carter frowned, pulling up the data. The signal was faint but growing stronger, and it wasn't abomination technology. "It's human," Briggs said, astonished. "Reinforcements." Suddenly, space lit up as thousands of new ships appeared from warp, but these weren't Earth's defense ships. They were vessels from the Alliance, very species that had once abandoned humanity to face the abominations alone. "What? The?" Carter muttered, watching in disbelief as the Alliance fleet surged into the battle, firing on the abomination ships with precision. A transmission came through, and Carter answered it. On the screen was the face of an alien commander, his reptilian features hard but determined. "We heard your distress call, humans," the commander said, "and we've seen enough. The abominations must be stopped." Carter didn't waste time with formalities. "We could use all the help we can get." With the Alliance at their side, the tide of battle began to turn. The combined human and alien fleets pressed the abominations back, their war beasts falling one by one as the allied ships cut through the enemy lines.